Hello, welcome to this walkthrough. I want to take you through one of your homework problem for chapter 12, and that is question 5. So for question 5, what you've been given is this. So we've been given that Skyline Company uh, will invest $270,000 in a project that will not begin to produce any returns until the end of year 3. And then from the end of year 3 until the end of the 12th year, we're talking about 10 periods here. The annual cash flow will be $62,000. So, and then you've been given appendix B and D, where you can use it to approximate your answer. But of course, you've been encouraged to use a financial calculator or any other methods to determine an exact value of the problem. We've been told the cost of capital is 12%. So the question is asking us to determine is the net present value. Again, this is one of those techniques or tools we use to analyze financial projects, and therefore they help us in selecting whether a firm should go ahead in selecting a project or not based on NPV in this particular case. So I just want to show you the problem on a timeline. I tend to like to use a timeline because it gives me a bigger picture of what the problem is all about. So on our timeline here, I've indicated the cash flows. Again, remember these cash flows are at the end of the period. Uh, the annuity payments we're receiving at the end of year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6, year 7, and that is $62,000. Now, from what we know, the $62,000 here represents an annuity payment because it's a series of same payments. The only technical part to this problem is where there is a gap between year 1 and year 2. So there is no cash flow at the end of year 1, at the end of year 2. So there's a gap here. Now, if there was no gap, if there was no gap here, if there was a 62 year at the end of year 1 and 62 at the end of year 2, then it will be very easy for you to determine the present value of these cash flows by basically using a financial calculator or even Excel, and you just say your number of periods are basically 12. But in this example, the unique thing is year 1 and year 2, there is no cash flow coming in. So you invest 270,000 today, but you'll be saving 62,000 each year for the next 10 periods. I think there are 10 periods for the next 10 periods, but this is from the beginning of end of year 3. So what we need to do is to determine the present value of these annuity payments back to either, again, you could call it to the end of year 3. So we determine the present value of this to the end of year 2, which is basically the beginning of to the end of year 2, which is the beginning of year 3, because this payment is coming at the end of the year. So to determine the present value of all these series of cash flows to the end of year 3, what you do, again, you use your formula, and we know that the cost of capital is 12% is given to us. So you can key in 0.12, or you could just select your percentage that you have, and then the number of periods, that 10. So we have 10 periods. Again, this from the end of year 3 to year 12. And then we have the payment. Our payment is $62,000. Sorry, I think I missed something. Or I should have put a comma there. And then our payment is $62,000 every year for the next 10 years. And our future value is 0 because there's no future value involved here. and these payments are coming at the end of the period. Again, that will be 0 by default, or you could skip it, and you'll enter, and this will give you the present value of all those future cash flows, the $62,000 each year. But this is now the present value of this payment at the end of year 2. Now, so the next step for us is, again, remember what we have done in the past. We could apply the future value of annuity, the present value of annuity, the the present value of a single amount, or the future value of a single amount. So in this example now, you try to look at that the $350,000 as a future value. So in 2 years' time, you'll be receiving 350,000 313, and therefore, because we are looking for the net present value, which is basically the present value of all these payments, now what we need to do is to determine the present value of this to times 0, which is here, right? So the present value of the uh, the present value of a single amount to be received in 2 years' time. Again, in 2 years' time, our N is 2. So our cost of capital is 12. Our number of periods, we're talking about 2 years to receive $350,000. If you look at that to be future value, the payment is 0. And the future value is now the 350,000 is our future value. And again, by default, the payments are at the end of the period, and you'll enter this, and your present value of $350,000 to be received 2 years from today, the present value is 279,268. And therefore, to determine our net present value, remember what we said, the net present value, we add the present value of all those cash flows. The present value of the initial investment, $270,000 to be invested today, the present value of that money is the same amount. So the present value of $270,000 is 270,000 because that money is being invested at time 0. The present value of all these annuity payments, including that gap in year 1 and year 2, the present value of that amount is 279,268. And therefore, to sum both the two present values, so therefore our net present value is going to be the sum of those two values, and you sum those two values and you approach a net present value of 9,268. So again, then how do we apply this tool? Remember what we said. If the net present value is positive, then you'll end up taking up the project. If the net present value is negative, then you're going to reject that particular project. In this example, our net present value is positive, which is 9,000. So in this case, we are going to take the project because in this example, we are saying we put in $270,000 as our initial investment. We are getting back 279,000. So we're getting 9,268 more than what we put in. So the project is going to return is going to create wealth for the organization if again they end up taking this particular project. So in this regard, we'll pick up the project because we have a positive NPV. I hope this information helps, and encourage you to even use a financial calculator and try to see whether you could approach to the same or close to the same value.